Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Back to the TARDIS podcast, the podcast where we take a look at every single episode of the 2005 revival of BBC's Doctor Who. I'm Jeff.
I'm Aurora.
I'm no one. Yeah.
This week we are discussing Series 7, Episode 7, The Rings of Akhaten, not by Stephen Moffat, which debated me. Up until I opened the wiki page like 2 minutes ago, I thought this was a Moffat joint. It's not. It's by Neil Cross.
Who?
Yeah.
Writer of 2 episodes in Series 7B.
Oh, okay. Good for him. I mean, it's a good episode, so like, good job, guy.
Yeah, good job, dude. Well done. This is the first post joining the crew Clara episode, and you know we got to go to future alien planet. This kind of in many ways it feels kind of like it's like you have like this. It's weird because I realize like there's a lot, you kind of have like a lot of similarities for your like first future or space companion story, in terms of like you have End of the World, you have Gridlock, you have maybe not as much Planet of the Ood, you have The Beast Below, where it's kind of like they fit into a very similar, Gridlock does kind of do it, of like, let's just throw in all these weird, wacky aliens and be this totally alien space, that I always kind of appreciate, and I think makes for a really interesting and fun, like, first post-introduction companion episode. And also, I think, kind of lets you get a feel for the vibes of how the showrunner is. Like, for example, RTD had fucking End of the World and Gridlock, and Moffat had The Beast Below, which was similarly kind of grungy and futuristic, but also very different in tone and feel.
Yeah. I definitely get what you're saying. I wish it's something they did more, just like throwing them into a very alien environment. It's I guess that's not as true as much in Gridlock and Beast Below, or actually in none of them, but okay, I kind of lost the plot of what I was saying. It throws them into a very foreign environment that's like very different from anything else we usually get to see. Like that's one thing that's on my mind. We don't usually get episodes that are like this alien. There's very few, and when we get them, they're usually more like really Doctor centric, like the whole season 6 stuff. These episodes definitely have like a distinct vibe between them that I think is unique.
For sure. I enjoyed, maybe it's the Star Wars geek in me, that just loves seeing like this alien, like old culture, everything is like worn, there's like a history to this place, and it's not really connected to humans or Earth at all. Even the aliens that are just like, they have the like weird makeup where it's like the 3 ridges on the forehead and the cheeks. It's like, that's the closest you get. And
yeah,
I think with this
very
episode,
Star Trek.
Yeah. This episode finally cemented in my mind that my favorite companion introductions seem to follow the theme of like their first adventure is in like this future like space setting that has like nothing to do with Earth. And even then, like, only really this episode fully ticks all those boxes for me. It was really enjoyable for me, and it's weird how, or I guess we'll get there, but this episode is like normally just remembered for the big speech, and sure, it's a Moffat 11th Doctor big speech, but there's so much else here. It was really exciting to revisit.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I was sort of commenting that like, in terms of like visual design, I mean, I'm struggling to think what other episodes are on this level. Not many. There's probably not more than like 2 or 3 that have like really this much good costuming, set design, color direction, and just like visual design in general. It's very distinctive.
the stuff that comes to mind is End of the World, where they blew most of their effects budget for that season on that episode, and Gridlock. Both of which are episodes that I think are very good.
I feel like there was another
Geoff-
one that we
Geoff
praised
just
for visual
complimented
design that I'm
Chibnall.
forgetting.
What? No, I didn't compliment Chibnall.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was thinking.
Both of those episodes are RTD episodes. I am
For some
remaining
reason-
100% on brand.
For some reason, I thought Gridlock was 42. So that was an Aurora Bimbo moment. I'm sorry, y'all.
Oops. Yeah, I think there was another episode we praised for visual design, but I can't remember what it was. So oh well.
Well, Waters of Mars, but that's a different.
Waters of Mars. That's right. Yeah, that's like a different type. But yeah, I really like one thing. The makeup. The makeup I was gonna say
Yes.
was like really good in this one because like usually they have just like 1 or 2 like really alien people, and like definitely there was like a lot of CGI for like the background crowds, but I'm pretty sure that like every alien they talked to was at least like, or like it seemed like it was makeup. I don't know. I might not just have the eye for that. Jeff probably can recognize it better.
What?
Or like, when the aliens were they like make practical effects in makeup or CG? It looked like makeup to me, but I don't have the eye for that.
I'd say probably a decent amount of it is CG. Practical, because if it was a lot of CG, it would probably not look very good because it would be either cheap or very brief, given the
Yeah.
budget that I think they were still working with.
Yeah, and so okay. I was just double checking that. Yeah, like pretty much every alien or like really alien person that comes up into like close frame, I think, is definitely like makeup, and there was a lot there, and some of it was very good and very creative. That's my
Yeah.
bit.
Again, very, very Star Wars-y, because in every Star Wars movie, there's, like, throwaway creatures that, like, you'll never see again, but, like, everyone has, every niche Star Wars geek has their one that is just, like, that is my favorite character. We don't know their name, or their planet, or anything about them, but he's doing great.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a lot of those, like, little bit moments that sort of, like, enhance the world, and for a show like Doctor Who that doesn't really have that much consistent world building, for there to be like, let's just go to a setting where people are doing a thing, worshipping this thing for this reason, even though it's not like world building that gets continued forward, for the story that it's in, it works great. It really helps establish, again, the world and the feeling of the episode, instead of just like, oh, this is another adventure of the week. It elevates it from that.
The one thing I will say about the like I do generally really like the world building in this episode. The only thing I thought was kind of stupid was just the exchanging things that are valuable to you is the currency here, because it's just like it's such an obvious setup and contrivance, and that was kind of silly. I can forgive it because like it's kind of the crux of the episode. But like it is very silly and impractical if you think about it. For like, actually, if you don't even have to think about it. That you just like you see that and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. But like, okay,
like honestly, it would have been silly and contrived and kind of stupid and very Moffat style over substance to have the Doctor defeat the villain by just having so much life for Akhaten to just vor. But also, I think it would have been less stupid than the Leaf.
Yeah.
I'm of two minds on that, because on the one hand, the opening that establishes the Leaf is very cheesy and very, like, Hallmark original holiday movie coming this December. Like, it's
But it
This is
does have good musical taste because it plays a little snippet of Ghost Town by the Specials, which is a classic song.
I'll take your word on that. But yeah, it's the opening is a bit weird. I found it, again, I didn't remember this opening at all, that like they keep the same actor for Clara's dad even when she's grown and like looking at her mom's grave, and I'm just like, this guy looks like he could be your boyfriend or your brother. I'm just like, this doesn't look like your dad.
I was confused if that was supposed to be her dad or not. Like, legitimately, I was like, wait, he's like young though. Was that the same actor?
Yeah,
as
it's
her
some
dad?
really wonky casting.
Yeah,
so that
no,
was...
I mean that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, the opening in general is kind of weird because it's like, it is like it's like kind of the overall Impossible Girl plot, but also it just makes the Doctor come across like a weird stalker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing where it's like the little one-off joke that Nine has where he makes a joke about like buying Rose like a red bike when she was 7 years old, and it's like, that's creepy, dude. I know that that's not what they intended, but that's weird. Don't do that.
Yeah, I will say that the bit at the end where it's like, hey, what's your name? Clara was a nice reveal. Like, obviously I knew that was coming because I remember this episode. But it, like, I could see how that would be like a twist in another context. Yeah, I mean, the through line with the leaf is fine. Like, I think using it as the sort of Deus Ex Machina is a little Like, are you seriously saying that like anyone could have just walked up to the god with a random object and been like, this represents the future, and then fucking killed it at any moment?
Yeah.
Okay, it's very... I'm of two minds on this because on one hand, you're entirely right. On the other, it's very evocative to me of Series 5, 11, and the whole, like, again, bringing back the fairy tale theme and vibe. So...
Yeah,
it's weird that this writer that does
never
like
been
two
the
episodes
biggest
does
fan of that, but yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
and,
like it and appreciate it. So, but I get why people don't.
I don't hate it. Like, I don't hate it. I don't... Like, I will say it's, to me, like, the episode's big flaw and why I wouldn't, like, rate it higher. But it's not like, oh, this ruins the episode. This is just like, it totally, like, destroys the idea of the episode. Like, it is the idea of the episode, and, like, the episode justifies itself around that central conceit. And, like, that's fine. Like, I wish... you can't really have the episode without that contrivance, and it's a pretty good episode, so, like, whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm just here being a fucking biased RTD stan.
Negative man.
SMH.
One showrunner Andy.
Yeah, I totally get that. It just it fits in the theme of like stories and what they say. And granted, the application to like Clara being the impossible girl, because they do kind of try and tie that whole in. It's like, what's your story? Like, yeah, that's kind of like really obvious. But in the whole application, like, I prefer the leaf and that ending subverting, oh, the doctor's gonna talk at it and then win. I like that that doesn't do the trick, and then she has to come in and like sort of, this isn't what she's doing in the narrative, but like for the audience, like proving like this is a companion that's like worthy to stand with the doctor, that can like that gets him, and that can like be that special person that he sees. It's not just that, oh, she's impossible and she's staying with me until I figure out what she is. It's that like by the end he sees her as this person aside from like the mystery that he's chasing. At least that's what I see in it.
Yeah. And I also do have to shout out this episode having a greater musical focus, which it's good. It's a good very sort of it fits the very sort of religious connotations that it's given.
I just realized that the sort of religious outfits here are very similar to the
Sisterhood
ones
of
from
Karn.
Is that the Rome people, the Pompeii people?
No, I was thinking of that's later. Never mind.
I was just like, oh, people in red cloaks. Anyways, I think that the music is good. Like, I think there's a couple soundtracks in here that are like haven't been in other episodes, like besides just the actual singing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure on that, but there were like a couple tracks that sounded new that I really thought were good.
Yeah, definitely.
It might just be because I Am the Doctor is so overplayed, but when I think of like what is 11's song, when I think of what is 11's song, I think of the Rest Now My Warrior bit, which is, doubly affirmed for me because they play that during 11's regeneration, but that to me is like quintessential 11, not fucking like, whoop-de-doo, I'm the Doctor, I'm gonna do a silly dance and then save the day with some Deus Ex Machina bullshit. Like, this is 11.
I Am the Doctor is just associated. Like, I feel like this song, for me, definitely associates more with kind of the good bits of 11's run, and a nice sort of callback to the opera piece that was written for 10, and I Am the Doctor is just more the soundtrack of Stephen Moffat just doing some fucking stupid shit. I Am the Doctor is the sound of Let's Kill Hitler and the Wedding of River song.
True.
And A Good Man Goes to War. I don't care what you say. That episode's a fucking mess. So yeah, and it's got it's interesting because it kind of ends up with the monster being a lot more abstract than you'd expect. And I dig that. Like, the last time they had a fucking huge-ass sun be a villain, it was pretty neat. It's pretty neat here, too. Maybe not as horror-tinged as 42 was, but it's pretty neat.
And there's the compliment to Chibnall. Anyways,
42 is an okay episode.
It is, and I did draw that comparison as I was watching it, like, of course they didn't intend this, but in my headcanon, that's the same species of sun. Just one decided not to be like a colonial, ego-driven prick and establish godhood.
But when are we gonna find the black hole sun? All right, sorry. There's my 90s music reference. We can move on now.
God. I will say that the reveal of this evil sun is pretty good. Like, I think it's a pretty good lead-in.
Yeah.
It keeps the audience like fooled as well as the Doctor. I think that's a good little bit. One sec. Oh, I was about to sneeze right there. Okay.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think they do a really good job of, like, I mean, just the sort of design of the like first monster already is like good enough to be convincing. Like, you really feel like, oh yeah, this could be like a villain. This could be like the big bad guy. One thing I really like is that it's kind of reminiscent of more 12 era Moffat monsters. Like I'm thinking of a couple, like Before the Flood,
the Fisher
Under
King.
the Lake, that guy, as well as like the Teller and stuff like that. Just like, sort of larger than humanoid, big scary monster aliens, as opposed to like more abstract things, or just like the recurring things that you get a lot in 11 Moffat era. Anyways, I just thought that was like a good setup, and I was like, this guy has a cool design. Like, oh, I don't actually remember what happened, or like what happens to this guy, and then it was like, whoa, it was a bait and switch, and like I knew the sun was the enemy, but I was still surprised.
Yeah. Actually, I will say, everyone gives clout to the speech that he has at the end when he's like basically feeding his experiences to the son. But actually, I want to shout out his speech that I actually think is a little bit better when he's talking to Mary and basically being like, that's not a god, and talking about like the forces of science that led to these atoms eventually becoming this person. That's a good speech, and I think it's actually a little bit better than the one at the end.
Yeah, it's a more intimate, personal one. That you get the big emotional climax, like the bombast, but the one-on-one stuff, again, that's effective too. And shout out to the Mary Galel actress. This may be my personal, like, being a snob about singing, but I like her acting more than her singing. I'm sorry. But she's good.
But she skews. Oh God, I don't remember what. Okay, so we have the two ends of the scale, and the one end is Jackson Lake's son, and I don't know I can't remember what the other end was. It was someone else in like RTD era, I think, that we commended for child acting. I don't know. Okay, for now, let's just say that the other end of that scale is young Amelia. So, like, not quite as much as young Amelia, but definitely skewing more towards young Amelia than Jackson Lake's son.
Oh, for sure.
And hopefully everybody who's listening to this podcast understands what the fuck I'm talking about, because I'm not explaining myself.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, the only thing that didn't work for me, like, everything in the temple to, like, deconstructing the religion and the faith and to what the god is, as opposed to, like, separating the actual god from the abstraction of why they worship it, like, all that was, like, pretty damn good. The only part that was, like, a little bit underwhelming was those, like, monsters that would appear when Mary didn't want to do something. That was the only, like, oh, we need to have, like, a cliche, like,
yeah,
thing in the way to keep the plot moving just, like, a few minutes longer. It was, like, that was the only part that really felt like dead air to me. Other than that, the episode was, like, incredibly well-paced, and I include the, like, a bit, like, saccharine beginning in that statement.
Yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, it kind of reminds me of God, what's the it kind of reminds me of the plot of Final Fantasy X, where it's, or at least kind of some of the themes where that game is kind of partially about like a religion that has ruled over this land and how it ties into this world-ending monstrosity, though in Final Fantasy X's case, it's a giant fucking whale of death and not a sun. But it kind of has a similar theme of, like, taking a religious order that basically imposes a rule of, like, accepting an unnecessary tragedy and upholding it as a status quo that I liked. I thought it was pretty good.
No, yeah, I can see that connection. Yeah, overall very, very, very well executed. I wouldn't call this, like, top tier 11, but it's definitely more towards the spectrum of the 11 that I know and love and think of. Like,
yeah,
when I think of, like, peak Series 5 11, like, this is, like, a little slice of, like, that, with perfectly balancing, like, almost perfectly balancing the narrative and the theme within, like, a framework that you could argue is very fairy tale and very science fantasy as opposed to sci-fi, but it's still meaningful, and it still gets the job done, even if you want to quibble about, like, the logic of the leaf and why has nobody ever been able to kill this thing before, or just, you know, all of that.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm kind of liking Series 7B way more than Series 5. Like, I was never that big a fan of Series 5, but, like,
What?
I don't know. These episodes have been good.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say like Series 6 or 7A. Are you fucking high right now? What? It's good, but it's not that good.
Let me recheck Season 5 episode.
Season 5 has some fucking bangers in it, man.
There's, Eh. There's not really
Wow.
any here I, like, totally dig. I mean,
Wow.
besides, obviously, Vincent and the Doctor, but, like, the rest were just kind of like, eh.
Wow.
We're
I'm
gonna have to do
sorry.
a
Like, I said it when we watched it. I wasn't that big a fan of Season 5.
We're gonna have to do a series re-ranking at the end of 7. I think it's overdue.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think my positioning for stuff has remained about the same since the last time we did one, but yeah.
I'll say this, I think so far it easily beats out Series 6 as my current least favorite as of rewatching, and it might be on par with Series 2 right now, so I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, what were we talking about?
I don't even know, man.
Okay, so I appreciate at the climax how when the sun is absorbing all of 11's memories and then it kind of like withdraws in on itself, we now know, thanks to Chibnall, that it was just like briefly stunned in its confusion by the timeless child revelation, and once it processed that, then it was like very angry.
Every fucking time! God damn it! No! God damn it!
You're welcome. And then when Clara comes in and gives it the leaf, that's when the episode really pays off for those with an inflation kink, because then it just expands.
So
All right.
true.
And those are my based thoughts on Series 7.
You
Episode
guys,
7.
how do you guys think they're gonna utilize the timeless child shit in Flux?
So we're in our
I
news
have no
portion
fucking
now.
idea.
Like I'm trying to think, cause like as far as I'm concerned, like if they don't really make it much of anything, that just furthers my original point that it is a pointless reveal just to have some big reveal. Like it's a reveal for a reveal's sake. And if they bring it in more, it's probably going to get really cheesy and stupid.
My position remains the same as it has been probably since December, which is, or no, it remains the same since when we heard like Chibnall and 13 are leaving. I hope he goes all in on it, because I'd rather have him explore this story arc than someone else. Like, I want to know where he thinks he's going.
No, if he doesn't explore it, RTD isn't touching it.
Yeah,
I have a, like, given the track record of how previous showrunners have handled their predecessors' material, he's just not going to talk about it.
Yeah, so that's what
I'm
I mean.
gonna be honest here.
Go ahead.
I still haven't watched The Timeless Child.
You don't need to. You really
I
don't.
know, but it's so funny
Save
that
your
I just
suffering
like
for the podcast.
Like
that. I literally just haven't watched it.
like honestly, I mean, I've only seen it once. And who knows what our plans for Chibnall coverage are going to be when we eventually get there. But in all seriousness, from the episode, what I watched, honestly, like, yeah, it's got like a hilariously bad twist, but also it's just fucking boring. It's like 75 minutes long, and 40 of it is like mostly just the master fucking monologuing and exposition dumping at the doctor. And then like 20 minutes of bad conclusion.
Long?
It's fucking 75. It's over an hour. Yeah.
Problematic King,
like,
blue
it's
balls,
boring.
captive doctor for 75 minutes. Yeah. Basically.
Like it's the reveals are there, and I distinctly remember like slowly sliding down and off the couch as I realize what the fuck is going on. But most of all, it's just fucking like badly paced.
So, yeah, I'll just reiterate, I hope that whatever it is, like, leans into it. At the very least, I hope that if Series 13 isn't directly about it, then it sets it up for the specials, solely because I don't know, I would respect that more, as opposed to, like, him trying to course correct for his finale, because I think we can agree that every time he's visibly shown to think that he's course correcting, he makes things worse. So I'm just like, just keep going. Just, just commit to it. We're proud of you.
Yeah, just keep on rolling with it.
Yeah, so those are my thoughts. Thank you, good night.
I think I saw something that was very interesting about like what the flux or whatever could potentially mean, and how it potentially could mean that like the timeless child retcons itself out of existence, which if true would be really funny, because A, it would really prove that it's a pointless twist, and B, would bring to mind another writing fuck up that fucking retconned itself out of existence, Sonic 06.
It would also fridge the first Black Doctor we've had, so that's fun.
Oh, they're not fucking Joe Martin. Oh, she's never going, like, until Big Finish gets a hold of her, she's never going to get like the screen time that she deserves. And unless we're just going to have to hope. Well, RTD is probably not going to cast her. What I was going to say is unless RTD casts another person of color.
No, yeah.
Which hopefully he will, but
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if because this is another piece of news that it looks like Sony is looking into buying Bad Wolf Studios or Productions, whatever it's called. If the team that's trying to make Doctor Who competitive with other franchises, which I hate that I have to phrase that in such a capitalistic way, but like, just in terms of the scale, if they're gonna do spin-offs or want to do stuff that doesn't involve problematic fave John Barrowman, then fucking give it to Joe Martin or one of the actors for the Master. Like, fucking go off.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. All right. Anything else from you guys before we move on to ratings? I've pretty much talked about what I wanted to talk about for this story.
I think watching this episode critically, I saw the beginnings of like how the shift from 11 to 12 clearly was like a big shock to Clara, just because of how, like, I don't know, how boisterous, I don't know if that's the right word, but like 11 always having a smile on his face, gleefully introducing her to everyone, taking her hand, like everything is just like, even from a non-romantic context, like if I became friends with this larger than life alien being and then they turned into someone that like 12 starts out as in the beginning, I could see where her shock would come from. And I only bring that up so far in advance because when I was like a young teen watching it play out in real time, I didn't get it. So I want to give at least some credit to at least this episode for, like, having something there where I could be like, okay, I see where this went, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's an ass pull, I'll fully admit that, but yeah, good stuff.
All right. Yeah, so moving on to ratings. Yeah, it's a solid fucking episode, and I think it's definitely indicative of an uptick in quality that this last stretch of 11 has, even while it has some really bad shit and some slightly uncomfortably horny moments a little bit later on. But, you know, I think overall it works, and it works really well, and it's definitely... It continues a trend of the show starting to find its footing again after a particularly shaky season and a half. Yeah, so yeah, I'd say it's a solid A-.
I'm definitely showing my bias toward very early 11 era with the fairy tale-ness, the science fantasy of it all. Also showing my Star Wars bias, with just the aesthetic of the world and how it does its world building. I really enjoyed this episode. Basically, everything as our friends in the Nomad system. I still think you're going by that. I apologize. I'm not up on anything. But as they mentioned with the set design and the costuming, like everything was on point. I also really enjoyed the banter between 11 and Clara, because we tend to think of 12 and Clara as having the, like, S-tier banter, but there were some moments here where I was just like, okay, this is pretty damn good as well. Yeah, I might be biased in those respects that I laid out earlier, but this episode is an easy A for me.
Yeah, Mamma Mia, it's a fucking episode for sure.
It's a fucking episode.
It's a fucking episode. Yeah, no, I mean it's well written. There's a little silly through line which is like, but overall it's pretty good, and I like how it looks and sounds in general. So like 8.25 out of 10.
Sure. All right. Next week it'll probably be time for a bonus episode. I don't know what that's going to be on yet. So we'll figure that out. Until then, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at B2TARDISPod. You can support us on Patreon for a number of benefits, such as early access to episodes, the ability to listen in live to episodes being recorded, and potentially even the ability to guest star upon an episode of your choosing. I'm Jeff. You can follow me on Twitter at WheatleyDL.
I'm Aurora, part of the Celestial System. You can follow all of us on the twitter.com at of mice and femmes for good memes.
Yeah, I'm no one. You can follow us again now, though.
Oh,
we're slightly active on at Nomadiclastic again.
Woohoo! All right, and we will see you all next week.